Al Kadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Nedarim, new chapter, Perek Chamishi, 5th chapter, Daf Memhe, Amud Bet, 45b. The Mishnah starts by speaking about somebody that's mudar anah from his friend. Is he allowed to benefit from him when the person has a shutafut with him or with other people? Shutafut is a partnership with him or with other people. So says the Mishnah. It says the Mishnah, Shutafin shenadru anaa ze mizeh. When you have people that are partners in a chatzer, in a courtyard, okay, that they made hanaa, isur hanaa from each other. Now here we're going to have a technical problem. So now what are you going to do? So asurin nikanes lechatzer. They're not allowed to go inside of the chatzer, right? Because before the chatzer is divided. Because basically, when I come into the chatzer, if I've got a partnership with somebody else, so I'm not allowed to use that part now also. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, "Ze nichnas letoch shelo, v'ze nichnas letoch shelo." No, you could go in. Why? Because when I go in, I'm using my part. I'm not using your part. And when you go in, you're using your part. Meaning, even though it's not really divided, that this part is mine, this part is yours. It's just where we have a partnership. But ki'ilu, that when I'm coming in, I'm using my part. Okay, that's what he says. Ushnehem, Memvav Amud Aleph, 46a1. Ushnehem asunim le'amid rechaim v'tanur ulgadel tarnegolim. But according to everybody, you're not allowed to place, whether it's going to be a mill or an oven, or to grow tarnegolim. Right? Why? Because at the beginning, right, when they bought it, right, each one is going into their own. But now all of a sudden, if you're going to buy these things or you're going to put these things, you need permission now from your friend. So therefore, because now you're minimizing, right, the field from usage from somebody else, okay, from the other partner. So if you have a problem. What happens if only one of them was prohibited from hana, from his friend, from the other shutaf? Lo yikanes lechatzer, he's not allowed to go into the chatzer. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov omer, yachol lomar lo leto sheli ani nichas. So Rabbi Eliezer, right, again, it comes, he says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, right, it's the same one that we mentioned before. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov comes and he says, no, you could say, listen, I'm coming into my own field. I'm not going into yours. So therefore, even though it's only one-sided prohibited in hana'ah, he could still say, listen, I'm going into my own property. This is what I'm doing. I'm going into my own. Okay? Next. Vekofin et hanoder limkor et chelko. Betin will force the one, right, that prohibited on himself to benefit from his friend, right, and that his friend is not allowed to benefit from him, to sell his portion, because then we're going to suspect that maybe behemet, right, there's going to be a problem. He's going to actually use, right, okay, and therefore, v'kofin et hanoder limkor et chelko. Haya echad min hashuk mudar be'echad mehem hana'ah. Imagine right now, one of them from the shuk was mudar hana'ah from one of the shutafim hana'ah. Lo yikanes lechatzer, you're not allowed to go into the chatzer. So if one of them was from the shuk, was mudar hana'ah, you cannot go into the chatzer now. Right? Why? Beforehand, when we're partners, I could come into the field and I'm going to say, listen, I'm going into my own field. This is my portion of the field. You could do that. However, though, here now, if it's somebody from the shuk, right, and he's mudar hana'ah from one of them, what's he going to do now? Here he can't do that. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, no, yes. Yachol lomar lo letoch shel chavercha ani nichnas, v'ani nichnas letoch shelcha. Meaning he could come and say, listen, I apologize. I'm going into your friend's field. I'm not going into yours. That means even the guy from the shuk, right? One more time. I'm from the shuk. You guys have a partnership. I'm from the shuk, and one of you guys come and you tell me, I don't want you to benefit from me. I could come, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, I could still come inside. Why? I'm going to his portion. And no, I'm going to his portion. I could also do that. And therefore, there's no problem with me. That's what Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov comes and he says. Next case, what happens if you're mudar hana'ah from your friend and he's got a bathhouse or a bet abad? Bet abad is the oil press. Okay? Hamuskarin ba'ir, that is rented to a third party in the city. So if the person gets a certain percentage, okay, or he has a certain amount that it's still his, asur. So then you're not allowed to benefit from it. But en lo ben tfisat yad, if you do not have tfisat yad, mutar. Which means, for example, right, I come and I have a oil press, or I have a, whatever it is exactly, I've got a bathhouse. I rent it out to David Perez. Okay, so now what happens is somebody comes and they make their mudar anaf from me. So if I still have something from David Perez, which means whether I still got a portion of it, whether I get percentages of it, whether I get something, so then the guy is not allowed to use it because it still belongs to me. It's still mine. But if I 100% rent it out to David Perez, so therefore, even though they're mudar anaf from me, they're allowed to benefit from the bathhouse, or they're allowed to benefit from the oven. And the reason why is because it has nothing to do with me right now. I rented it out. If somebody comes and he tells his friend, which means your house is prohibited to me to come into it, right? Or or the field, right, is going to be a suit to me if I'm going to buy it. Umet. Now the owner of the field dies, or the owner of the house dies. Or he sold it to somebody else. Mutar. It's going to be asur. Because he only prohibited from this person. Yeah. Sorry, what did I say?
Mutar is going to be asur.
Sorry, mutar is going to be permitted. Why? Because what happened is he only prohibited it upon himself, this guy's field, or this guy's house. The second that the guy died, or he sold it to somebody else, now it's going to be mutar. However, though, if he said, kunam bayit zeh shani nichnas, this house, or sadeh zod, this field, shani lokeach, umet, and then he dies, or mechro la'acher, he sold it to somebody else, asur, it's going to become asur.
It's amazing how much it would be.
Just the. So we're going to ask the following question right now. Minadru plige, right? Where the Chachamim, they argue on Rabbi Eliezer and Yaakov when we were talking about shutafim, that they made nedarim on hana'ah, each one on each other, which means me to you and you to me, meaning each shutaf on each other. Hediru zeh, right? But what happens if each one prohibits hana'ah on his friends? What's halacha? Mi amrina, do we say benadru de plige? Then in such a case of nadru, which means they prohibit it to themselves, that's when Chachamim argue and they prohibit the knisa, the entering into the field. But if each one prohibited his friend, module Rabbanan, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the rabbis agreed to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, anusin damu, because they're considered anusin to do with isur na'ah. Or dilmar, maybe we're going to say afilu diru zeh, even if they did come and they prohibited to each other, pligi Rabbanan, the rabbis argue, which means like this. One more time. There's a machloke between Chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Chachamim say asur to go inside the field. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, no, you could go in the field and just say, I'm going into my portion. The Gemara is asking, when do we say this? Are we coming and we're saying this in a case where we're talking about hidiru zeh, right? Or benadru. What does that mean? Benadru means, right, that each one came and they prohibited, right, on themselves. Okay? That's not chavero. Or hidiru zeh is that we're coming and we're doing it, each one in each other. Okay? Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara. Tashema haya echad me'en mudar anah mechavero. So we wanted to bring a proof that what happens if one of the shutafim was mudar anah mechavero, which means that according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, you're still allowed to go in. U'pli Rabbanan. So you see from here that it's mashma if only one of them was prohibited to his friend. As he said, it's the rabbis argue. So if you're going to tell me that it says mudar, it's miramez, that the neder was through somebody else, not that you did it to yourself. You were mudar, meaning that somebody did it to you, not that you did it to yourself. And so the Gemara Tani nadur mechaverona. No, you could change the braita. It was nadur. Nadur means that you were the one that did it to yourself. So you can't bring me a proof. Hachinam misaber. It's also logical to say such a thing. The Tani Sefer, what we saw in the Seifa, ve'kofin et hanoder limkor et chelko, that we force the one that made the neder to sell his portion. I understand if he made it to himself, that's why we force him. Hanidani kofin. But if you're going to tell me that somebody else did it to him, why are we going to force him? Imagine right now, I come and I make a neder against you, and now they're going to force you to sell your property. He comes and makes a neder against me. Now I have to sell? Why? Doesn't make sense. So Amar Rabba Amar Zeire, it says Rabba the name of Zeire, Memvava Mubet 46b, Machloket sheyesh ba kedei chaluka. The entire machloket between Chachamim, Rabbi and Yaakov is only in a chatzer that you could divide the chatzer. Meaning, in order to divide a property, there has to be a minimum amount for both of them. We're not going to divide a property that each of you are just going to get, like a half of a little guy. You understand? It has to be that you have enough in the property. Okay? So therefore, that's what we're talking about.
No, c'est il a vendu
so
à quelqu'un
Amaleh,
d'autre,
Rav Yosef,
à John Doe.
says Rav Yosef,
Tu comprends?
Hare Bet Knesset. Yeah, listen to this. Bet Knesset. Techmi shem bo kedei chalukah dami. A bet knesset that was bought by everybody together. Meaning, we're not talking about one person that comes and buys a bet knesset. Talking about a bet knesset that everybody came and they put money together, right? Inyana de yoma. Yeah. So what happens is when we have a bet knesset, huh?
So we did.
Yeah. So when you have a bet knesset that everybody comes and they buy, they put money into it in order to buy something. It's considered something that you can't divide, right? Because at the end of the day, right, it has to stay shalem in order to serve. You can't take a bet knesset to say this little portion is mine, this little portion is yours, this little. You can't do that. You need a full bet knesset in order to be functioning. Utnana, we learned right? That basically when two people come and they're prohibited to benefit from each other, both of them are prohibited for something that even the bet knesset. Because basically, if I come, let's say we all chip in and we're all putting into a bet knesset. We buy the bet knesset. We're all here. Baruch Hashem. Now all of a sudden, now what happens is it follows, right? We come and we say, 1 second. Now you have two people that they come and they prohibit on each other benefiting. They can't come to the bet knesset. They cannot come to the bet knesset because if you cannot divide the bet knesset, because it's kimish en bo chalukah dami, so now both of them are prohibited to go inside because that means they're benefiting from each other because they're all partnership in something inside that they cannot divide. So therefore, if you're going to tell me just like Zeide, it comes out that the Chachamim, they did not argue on a chatzer shem badin chalukah. So therefore, who's our Mishnah going like? Elamar Rav Yosef Amar Zire, but rather Rav Yosef says the name of Zire, machloket shem ba kedei chalukah, aval yesh ba kedei chalukah l'divrei kol asur. He says no. Our machloket is only between Chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is only in a place where they cannot divide it. But if they have kedei chalukah, which means that you're able to divide it between them, according to everybody, it's asur. Why? Because then divide it. If you're able to divide it, and then I get this part, you get that part. Nobody's benefiting from each other. But if you cannot, no, because you always need a minimum. That's what you always need a minimum amount of space. We cannot. If you have this room. Right? Imagine right now I'm going to say you have this room, divide it. Well, where are you going to, what? You're going to be able to fit a kitchen and bowls, a washroom and bowls? You can't do that. You can't divide it. There's a minimum space in order to divide. And we just said before, right, we're going to speak about it after.
So you can, but
well, depends what it is. Depends whether it's kedei chalukah or lo kedei chalukah. That in itself is another right debate. What is kedei chalukah? But we're just putting it into, do you have enough in order to divide or not? Okay, Ve'amar Ravuna says, halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. V'chein amar Rabbi Elazar, and also Rabbi Elazar says, halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, which means that with what did Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov say in the Mishnah? That you're allowed to go in. You're allowed to go in and say, I'm going into the other one's property, or I'm going on the other one's thing, and that there's no problem whatsoever. We continue with Zat Hashem.